Hello, my name is Sean Daniels, and for my action research project, um, I looked at the effect that an assignment incentive would have on student attendance and motivation. This was completed for MSL 5121, Inquiry and Research with Penny Schuckman. To begin, the purpose of the study was to determine if an assignment incentive would affect student attendance and motivation. The focus group were 62 juniors or 11th graders in 3 AP English Language and Composition classes. Student attendance was looked at, the data prior to the incentive and then after the incentive was reviewed to determine if there was any effect, increase or decrease. And then student motivation also was reviewed prior to the incentive and after the incentive with a survey. So 2 surveys there. The goal, at least that I had, was 95% attendance rate as set forth by our administration for the entire school, and an increased level of motivation in the course. To begin, so I noticed that in class at the beginning of the semester, spring 2019, that there was low student attendance and motivation for my classes, even in my AP classes, which is a little bit unusual. And so what I wanted to do with is to look at with students who are intrinsically motivated, would the use of an extrinsic motivator such as an assignment incentive affect attendance and motivation? So the research design type was one group, so all of them together, all 3 classes were a part of that group, and then we did a pre-test and post-test design type. And then I looked at attendance data prior to and after, and then the pre and post incentive survey. The research-based support for change. So the National Center for Education Statistics discusses the idea that student attendance is a leading factor towards reaching student achievement. And so based off of that idea, I believe that student attendance and making sure that students come to class could only be a helpful thing in hopefully helping students reach higher levels of achievement. The positive behavioral interventions and support systems rewards talks about the idea that schools have been using positive reinforcement lately to increase student attendance, and that has been a useful strategy to support student attendance. Matt DeLong and Dale Winter discussed the idea of intrinsic and extrinsic motivators. They say ultimately intrinsic motivators are most important and have the highest amount of impact on student achievement. However, that extrinsic motivators can be very useful for behavioral modification, and in this case, student attendance would be probably the main thing that we're focusing on there. Marzano, Pickering, and Heffelbauer talked about the idea that student choice can lead to student ownership in the class and greater levels of engagement and motivation. So in the sense of this study, I gave them an incentive. I gave them choices on an incentive, and by allowing them to choose the incentive, my hope was that they would have a higher interest in meeting that incentive requirement. For the data collection plan, participants, there were 11th graders, or 62 11th graders, in all 3 AP Lang classes. For the materials, there was a pre-incentive survey and a post-incentive survey that was there to assess student level of motivation. They needed to have, I used Google Forms, they needed to have student Chromebooks to complete that, and then within that there was a choice on the assignment incentive during the pre-incentive survey. And then I also looked at attendance data reports from PowerSchool, which is our operational management system. So for the procedures, all classes were given the survey, the pre-incentive survey. Those survey results were tallied, and also I reviewed the choice that they came up with for the assignment incentive. The assignment incentive information was provided to them once we were to determine what that was, along with the attendance parameters. So they chose 10 points extra credit to the article analysis number 2. And under that incentive, they could miss 1 class period, excused or unexcused, and still get the incentive. There ended up being 3 class periods that were reviewed to meet the incentive requirements. So one day actually was removed because of a snow day. And there was a post-incentive survey to review motivation that took place during the incentive. For data analysis, so quantitative data, student attendance data was reviewed prior to the incentive, so that was January 8th, 2019 to February 5th, 2019. There were 52 excused absences during that time. There were 10 unexcused absences, so there were 62 absences total. If there are 62 students and there were 14 attendance days, that should be 868, but one of my students transferred in and they were not there the first day of class, so that wouldn't count against our attendance rates, so it actually becomes 867. So 805 out of 867 is a 92.8% attendance rate during that time. During the incentive, there were just 3 attendance days, February 7th, 8th, and 12th. During that time, there were 9 excused absences, 1 unexcused absence, so 10 absences total, and there are 186 total class periods that they could attend with all students. So that's 176 out of 186, or a 94.6 attendance rate, just short of that 95% rate that I was hoping for. Looking at some more of the qualitative data, we see that the level of motivation that students had for the course prior to the incentive, we see that there is a 44.3% average level of motivation. Above average was 27.9%, and excellent was 18%. A few things to note: below average level of motivation was a 6.6, and although it's not stated, you cannot see it here because the pie piece is so small. I believe there is a 2.2% level of motivation, poor level of motivation. Also within the pre-incentive survey, I did look to see what assignment incentive students would like to have for the class. And so you can see that the numbers were pretty close. They could choose at least 1, but no more than 3. And so ultimately, the most students chose 10 points extra credit on article analysis, number 2. For the post-incentive survey data results, qualitative data, we do see a rise in the level of motivation. 49% was average level of motivation as opposed to 44.3. We see an increase here, 30.6%. And that's an increase of around 2.7% from above average level of motivation prior to the incentive. And you'll also see, like, every percent raised. You'll see that there's not even a poor level of motivation, even though that was on there. No students chose that as an option. They felt that their level of motivation had increased during the incentive. So the discussion analysis of project outcomes, student attendance slightly improved from 92.8% to 94.6%, just short of 95%, that goal, that administration goal. Student level of motivation was moderately increased. We did see, like I said, that above average level of motivation increased 2.7%. Average level was an increase of 4.7%. We saw average or higher level of motivation between the pre and the post survey was a change of 92 to 98%. As far as the dissemination of results and future directions, the data was shared to leadership team meeting, and then there is a possibility of professional development for teachers and staff on how to use extrinsic motivators to support student attendance. And then I also shared this with the current AP students, right? They need to be rewarded their incentive, and so that data has been shared out to them as well. We'll continue the implementation of this, although I'm going to change a few things. I'd like to lengthen the time for students to receive the incentive. 3 days is probably not enough. And then I'm going to have a larger impact of the assignment incentive. So there's going to be hopefully a bigger or more impactful incentive. So that is my study, and I thank you for your time.